First of all, I would say do not start from ChatGPT. Let's just establish that.
Yes.
Because if you do,
Yeah.
ChatGPT will send you to places that are very, very crowded. So
Yes.
don't start from ChatGPT. I am the founder of Cultured Creative and co-founder of Latitude, and I'm also a brand consultant. So that's my main work that I do. And I've worked in brand development for the last 12 years. Hard to
Wow.
believe, but yeah, started in marketing agency, and then I moved on to work for a nonprofit just because I wanted a little bit more meaning in the work that I was doing.
Yeah.
But rewinding a little bit. I was already super interested in cultural travel, community-based travel, because I moved from Nigeria to the US, and that was kind of like the start of just really being fascinated by cultural travel. So when I left the corporate world and left that nonprofit work, I decided to use my expertise in branding in something that I was passionate about, which is
Yeah.
tourism, but specifically sustainable and responsible tourism. And so now I
Mhm.
just help brands develop their branding and their messaging so that they can grow because I believe responsible travel brands are really there's a lot of focus and purpose, but there can be more when it comes to actually being financially sustainable as well. So that's part of the work that I help with. But this year I also became a part-time digital nomad. So I'm traveling around, getting
Oh,
to experience tourism, not just from a traveler's perspective, but also from a brand strategist perspective. And it's really showing me how tourism businesses can do more to connect local communities. So that's the introduction in a nutshell.
I love it. I love it. And do you remember when, I mean, how old were you when you traveled from Nigeria to the US? Was that your first trip or I mean,
Yeah,
I
so
want to ask you about your traveler journey, let's say.
Yeah, so I that was my first international trip. I had traveled a little bit within Nigeria, but
Yeah.
traveling migrating from Nigeria to the US was my first international trip. It was my first time being in a plane. So that was the first big travel that I had. But definitely my way of traveling has evolved over time, but I would say the first real inspiration to travel, just kind of rewinding a little bit here, the first real inspiration to travel came because my dad was part of the Rotary Club, and so he
Oh,
traveled a lot alongside my mom, but we also
yeah.
hosted a lot of guests in our house, so international guests, and I got to hear their stories, so that was quite
Oh,
fascinating for me as
interesting.
a child. Yeah, so it
Yeah.
was quite fascinating. I got to listen to their stories. I got to just soak in their own cultures from what they told us. But it made me really want to travel because I was like, I want to see these things for myself. I want to experience it for
Yes.
myself, just hear the stories, right? So traveling to US was the first leap of enjoying or experiencing a different culture from mine. But
Hmm.
I would say when I first came here, of course, there were a lot of cultural assumptions that I faced firsthand in the US.
Mm.
And but that made me want to travel even more because I'm like, okay, if there are all the stereotypes that are surrounding people and places, I want to
Yeah.
go to other countries so that I can break the stereotypes that I have as well. And so,
Hmm.
yeah, I was more inspired to travel. But as far as how it's changed, when I was a teenager, I was super obsessed with photography. And so when I traveled,
Oh,
I just mostly would take photos of people, food, dances, all elements of the culture, but I was seeing the
I love
culture
that.
through my little lens there. I
Yes.
was not really interacting with people, right? So
Yeah.
this kind of changed a little bit when I was in Jamaica. So in Jamaica, or in this market, just walking down, stall owners would ask us, "Where are you from?" And I would say, "Oh, Nigeria." And you could just see their eyes light up and they would go, "Oh, the motherland, blessings." And it was very fascinating to me because just that little interaction, I got to see how fun
Yes.
it can be when you engage with people on one-on-one interaction versus just hiding behind the camera, which for me, I was hiding behind the camera a lot. So I'm just like now every time I travel, I make it a point to get to know at least one local person. And I ask them, what do you do in your country for fun? How do you enjoy your country in a way that's not touristy? Because I want to see how they basically interact and engage with the local community, how they engage and enjoy different experiences that we as tourists don't know about. And so that's really how it's evolved and changed over time, where now my choices and experiences are being shaped by
Yeah,
doing what local people actually do to have fun in their own countries. So
Latitude and Culture Creative, how did you get inspired to create those projects? And also, you were saying you started like more, the regular journey, and you transition to something that felt more aligned to you, more aligned to your values, more aligned to what you really wanted to do. And I just would love to learn how you transition, how you got inspired to create these projects.
yes. The first part is, of course, leaving my old job, which
Yeah,
there are lots of reasons for that, obviously. But working for that nonprofit, I just started to realize that there was a value misalignment between me and between what they were doing. So
mhm.
that was when I knew that it was time to leave and it was time to do something else. And it was around this time I started really reflecting on how can I use the experience I already have, where can I
Yeah.
apply it. And around this time, I found Ikigai. So it's a Japanese principle.
Yes.
And it basically, you've probably heard of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
but
okay.
I'm hearing this. I also got inspired by Ikigai at some point in my
Ah,
life. Yes, I resonated
nice.
with your words.
Yeah. But I was just learning about it for the first time, and it was very fascinating to me because I was thinking, okay, it combines four critical elements, right? What you love, what you're good at, what the world
Yeah.
needs, what you can be paid for as well. So all of those four things come in together. And it was at that intersection that I really found travel branding because obviously I have expertise in branding. And then there's the passion and love for cultural and community-based travel as well as supporting this purpose-driven travel businesses because I had seen several myself just during my own travels that
Yeah.
they were doing all the right things, but they still weren't succeeding or they weren't thriving, or sometimes they even closed down altogether just because they didn't have the right tools to grow. And so for me, that's what really inspired me to focus on branding for tourism, especially responsible tourism. And of course, that transition wasn't easy for me to make, leaving my regular job, the security, the stability of all of it. But it was what inspired me to start Cultured Creative because I just believe that there's a lot of branding and marketing support that this businesses can use to tell their stories, attracting mindful travelers, also building their brand identities that all support community growth as well as the communities that they serve, because part of it is creating initiatives that support communities through brand projects. So all of that combined together is what makes up Cultured Creative. And now moving on to Latitude.
Yes.
So Latitude is a little bit different, but connected still in some ways. So the main issue that we saw here is that sustainable tourism professionals typically work in a very competitive field in the
Uh,
terms of just
yes.
tourism as an industry altogether. So because of this competition, there's not much room for collaboration. There's not much room to make meaningful partnerships within the niche that we're in. And so my co-founder, Jamie, who was the one that came up with the virtual speed networking events,
Yeah.
Jamie created that event to connect people within the space to make it easier to just find those partnerships. But then when I came on board, we had this conversation where it's like, how can we make Latitude something bigger so it's not just one-off virtual networking series, but it's something more. It's a community. And again, we were hearing this from the people that attended past events like yourself
Yes.
about making it into more of a community. So that's really how Latitude was born. And right now we are in that process of transitioning into that fuller community spectrum. So we're basically connecting like-minded people. We will be providing resources that they can also use moving forward and just in their learning and growth about responsible tourism. And we're just there to be that platform of support and advice for them, as well as having a community where it's easy to make those partnerships. So both of the businesses are rooted in the same belief that tourism can be better if we just work together. So that's really the core of both of them.
I agree so much. I love the essence of both projects. And you know that traveling my way, I also dreamt about creating. I mean, it started in my head some time ago when I started traveling because I really feel like community is where we can uh, create change, some change in the world, the change that we want to see, the things that we want to be different. I believe that community is the key, like the key element or the key word here. So I love it so much how you're thinking these two projects. And you mentioned with Culture Creative storytelling. How do you connect this storytelling when it comes to sustainability or authentic travel?
Yeah, I would say storytelling is really the only way I see to make sustainability truly like connect with travelers because it's a very it's a tricky term.
Mhm.
It's a tricky
It
niche as
is.
well. And the reason I say that, like two mistakes that a lot of businesses tend to make when it comes to sustainability and trying to sell that to customers is that they rely on a lot of jargon. And when I say jargon, I mean words
Yeah.
like sustainable travel, regenerative travel, responsible travel, all of these things, they're technically correct, yes,
Yes.
but travelers don't understand what they mean. But it also has a more dangerous effect, which is using creating a green noise effect, basically. So that green noise effect is just people tune out every time they hear these words because there's a lot of greenwashing. They don't know who to believe. So they start to just tune out every time they
Hmm.
hear
Yes.
sustainability, right? That's one problem. The second problem is coming across as too preachy. So lecturing
Yeah.
people about what to do, what not to do, that it's a little bit of a turnoff for travelers as well. But we have to understand that there's something called buyer psychology, and buyer psychology is basically everyone's asking, what's in it for me? And that's where the storytelling comes
Mm.
in. Because when you tell stories, you're moving from just stating dry facts to showing how sustainability enhances the whole guest experience. And for me, I can give a specific example because when I work with clients, we do like a SAV framework, and I call it SAV. It's just subtraction,
Yeah.
addition, and
Okay.
value. So what do you avoid? This is your internal guide and compass, right? What are the things that
Yeah.
are not sustainable that you avoid in whatever you offer? And then what do you add? What do you offer to the guest? And then value, what benefits do the guests get from whatever your offer is? So those values would be emotional and practical values combined together. And to give a specific example here, so
Hmm.
a brand can say, we offer sustainable trekking experiences, partnering with local guides to minimize environmental impact.
Yeah.
That is a very jargon dense statement to a
Yes.
traveler because they don't really resonate or emotionally connect with those words. It doesn't really mean much to them. But if we use this framework and shift to what value or benefit is it given to the traveler, we can say something like hike ancient trails with guides whose families have lived in the Andes for generations, sharing the secret routes only locals know. And you're suddenly moving from
Oh,
dry facts to something that feels more emotional. And it's just
I see that
really
now. Yeah.
Having those sensory stories that are about connection, about cultural immersion, that travelers will feel like they're not being lectured to, but they're being invited to participate in something that feels very unique to them.
I love it. You were saying the example, and I was like, oh, yes, like so true. It's the same thing, but in a way that I can understand and I can relate. I'm not sure, but I'm guilty also, like all the time. I don't have the yet developed the storytelling skills, but I also feel like using the AI, it's taking us away from that like relatable way of expressing, and somehow we just oh, I don't know why we end up using AI to I don't know, to make things faster or why, but somehow we just got all tangled and involved and in that rear language. So making it that way, as you just said, it's just so interesting and so easier to connect and understand what sustainability is about, because we just listen to that word a lot, but we don't really know, especially as a traveler, when you are already confused, where do you need to buy first the flight ticket or the hotel, or where to stay? Should I stay in an Airbnb, in a hotel? And like it's already so confusing that if you want to be more focused on doing it in a way that is more sustainable or more authentic, you don't know where to start. So I think it's much easier if you can relate with the feeling. I love it.
Exactly. Yeah, there's already a lot of overwhelm, which is a great point that you bring up. There's people making 10 million decisions just for one trip. So if we can
Mhm.
simplify that process for them, and instead of further confusing, complicating the issue with terms that they don't really understand, then it makes it so much easier to not sell sustainability, but more so just inspire them to make better decisions because you're showing that it's
Yeah,
valuable not just for you as a business, but it's valuable for them as the traveler as well, without hitting them over the head with it and lecturing them, on your
yeah.
soapbox. So
Yes, so true. I love it. Yes. I'm going to read this question because I don't want to. So, oh yes. Keeping this topic, sustainability and authenticity, do you think traveler expectations will change over the next years?
absolutely. We're already seeing it changing, which is great because a lot of people are becoming more aware of how travel influences communities, how it impacts places. And I'm super thankful to all of the good people out there that have been putting the message forward, whether it's creators, whether it's businesses, whether it's marketers working with businesses put in this message out there about
Yeah,
communities, about tourism's impact, and making people more aware. But we're already seeing the trends of more people starting to ask no longer just where am I going, but why am I going there? And I love the term Whycation. That's a new term that's coming out as to what types of vacations people are
oh,
going
okay.
for. Yeah. So the Whycation is basically asking, why am I going to this destination? Why this specific
Yeah,
place? Because now it's becoming more about values, it's becoming more about purpose, it's becoming more about meaning instead of just pretty photos, right? So I think really the brands that are going to succeed in the next year, at least moving forward,
yeah,
are those that really tap into this values-driven travel and move away from the top 10 lists because that's what we've seen in the past. But people are no longer just relying on an empty top 10 list and it's like, oh, top 10 to-dos or top 10 places to visit anymore. It's more
yes,
so
yes,
what is this place going to do for me? How is it going to transform me? How is it going to change the way that I see things? How does it align with my values and what I'm looking for from life
yeah.
right at this moment? So I think that is a huge change that we're going to be seeing moving forward into the next year here.
So, Sarah, how everyone says that traveling is transformational. Do you feel that way?
So I honestly believe that travel can be transformational when it benefits everyone involved. So
Yeah.
everyone means the community, the place, the traveler. When it's beneficial to everyone, then that's when it's most transformational. And
Yeah.
this really came to life for me during my first solo trip to South Korea. And I was invited by the guest house manager, speaking of talking to people randomly. So I started
Mhm.
a conversation with him, and he
Yeah.
invited me to this 8-day cultural exchange program in a rural village called Buan, which is very tiny. Not many
That's
Koreans even know
amazing.
about it. But in that village, community-based tourism wasn't just a theory for them, right? It was
Yeah.
more of practical because they were leaving it, they were doing it. So community members came together and they were basically working to create tourism initiatives that attract both locals and foreigners.
Yeah.
Stay longer and to help repopulate the area because Korea's suffering from the huge population crisis, especially in this rural areas. So I recall something that really stood out to me was one of the owners of a farm,
Yeah.
an organic mulberry farm, and she said something that stayed with me, and I just love to quote it because it was
Yes.
really profound. And she said the countryside is a life lab, and I don't live a life that's given to me. I build it myself, and it's not always
Wow.
profitable, but I get to eat well, breathe fresh air,
Yes.
and work with good people. And so
I
I
love it.
saw this mentality that she had through everything we did, whether it was fishing barefoot in a mud flat or lying down on the floor meditating in a tea shop, or even just
Oh,
enjoying
wow.
this hot pot of stew that we farmed for all the ingredients from. So the whole experience just showed me that tourism can be this tool for regeneration and growth, not just consumption.
Yeah.
And personally, what I took away from it as well is that growth really requires making your own path and taking your own risks,
Yes.
whether it's in your life, whether it's in business, whether it's in your career, but it's really pushing yourself out of that comfort zone and creating your own path.
I love it. When was this trip, Sarah?
It was in April, so April of this year, 2025. I
That's
went to South
amazing.
Korea for 6 weeks. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That was a very unique experience.
It definitely was. It's one of those things where, it's just a once in a lifetime opportunity. So when I had to
Yes.
change my entire itinerary, to go on this trip, I was like, we're doing it because it's probably never going to
Of
happen again.
course. I would love to live an experience like that. Really. I just, yes, when narrating this, and I was like, I want this. I really want to live
It's
something like that. So
definitely
hopefully
worth it.
2026.
Definitely worth it. Just go to Buan.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I, I guess you can live this kind of experience anywhere, right? Or everywhere if you
Absolutely.
if you look
There are
in.
so many community-based travel because that's really what it is. So there are homestays you can do,
Yes.
especially in a lot of I know a lot of Asian countries do this. I haven't tried it. Well, obviously South Korea is in Asia, but but yes. A lot of Asian communities
Yes.
and Asian countries do this as well, where you can have like a homestay experience, and that in itself is just the cultural exchange, or you can look for specific cultural exchange programs that do this as well. And it's such a deeper level of immersion because you're
Yes.
really learning about the people. You're not just doing the touristy things, you're not just seeing the sights, you're actually learning about the culture and putting yourself deep into it so that you have more of that appreciation moving forward.
Yes. I can only imagine how inspired you got back home after that experience.
Yeah, I'm
I
still
love that.
talking about it because it was definitely a top highlight for me, and I don't think I'm ever going to forget that experience because it was very special.
No, no, I love it. Thank you for sharing that experience. And now I feel like I need to do something like that in 2026, at least to one time. I love that. Yes. And
Definitely
actually,
recommend
it,
it.
yes, and it should, I mean, I guess it's just like a way, when we started recycle with the recycling thing, like separating plastic, and that at first it seemed like too complicated, but then you just, it flows, and you just know how to do things. I feel like traveling, it's it can be the same. I mean, like at first it's not that easy to find how to have this kind of experiences more authentic, more sustainable, but I guess it's just learning and practice until you just understand that this is the way where you are going to get the most out of your trip and experience.
Yeah, it's now that you mention that, it's actually interesting because there's a term called the mere exposure effect, and that's
Yeah,
what you just described. So the more you get used to something, the more something becomes the norm, the more
yeah,
it's easier to choose that. So if responsible tourism is the norm, then it will be so much easier for people to choose it because, I mean, that's the main option, right? So this is where the responsibility lies on businesses and governments, really in this category when it comes to making it normal, making it standard,
yeah.
where businesses and the government can do more in just making this normal and common so that it's easier for travelers to choose it as well.
I would love to learn what were the highlights of the year, your lessons maybe, and what are your dreams and goals for 2026 if you already know which ones are those.
Yes. So definitely starting this whole part-time digital nomad lifestyle is a huge highlight for me because I'm
Yeah.
getting to learn and experience a lot, especially that South Korea trip that I mentioned
Yes.
earlier on. So it definitely was a big, huge part of my year. But as far as lessons that I learned, it was just that tourism has this enormous potential to do good,
Mm.
but and it's up to us, the travelers, it's up to the business owners, it's up to the government, communities to make the small choices that
Sure.
basically add up, but positive choices that add
Mm.
up over time. And I would say always being intentional about how we give back to places that we visit because we want that win-win situation for the places we visit and for us as the travelers
Yeah.
as well. And I think when it's all done thoughtfully, we can protect these places that we love. We can preserve them as opposed to
Sure.
just consuming them because the whole goal is to have these places intact for future generations,
Mm.
for those
Yes.
communities themselves, but also for us, the travelers, so we can go and enjoy those communities with them, alongside them as well. So it's definitely a mindset shift of um, giving back, not just consuming. And I think that that responsibility really belongs to all of us. But answering your final question here about goals for the next year,
Yes.
I'd say it's really building both Cultured Creative and Latitude, just continuing on that trajectory. As I
Yeah.
mentioned, especially with Latitude, moving into this community platform model. So we
Yes.
are having this space where people can really come together and really learn and grow from each other. So that's the big goal for next year. But we have our
I love it.
next networking event coming up in March, sometime in March,
Yeah.
and we'll definitely be announcing all of that. But it's something that I'm excited for because we're definitely planning it now and putting all the works into motion. So those are the plans for 2026 for now.
That's exciting. I love it. And I definitely want to join the next Latitude meeting. I really want to be
Would
part
love to
of
have
that.
you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing this conversation with me. I learned a lot. It was really, really exciting, a really nice conversation.
Thank you so much, Willie. It was a pleasure and I love talking to you and hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Yes, please.